All right, Uma Fight Camp, as you see, in my living room. It's now 5:49. 2.5 more hours before I can eat something. It's Ramadan. Last time I ate was 4 o'clock this morning. So if it looks like my mouth is dry, it's because it is. The last bit of energy I have, I'm probably using to post this video. There was a gentleman who noticed the photos, some of the photos I posted of the full contact bare knuckle tournament that took place in 1975. Bear with me. Again, I'm using all the faculties I have here. I'm going to try to not make any bloopers, so just be a little patient and I'll get through this video. Hopefully it'll be exciting for you. So, here we go. He saw some of these pictures, and he said the pictures were beautiful. He liked the pictures, and he just thought about that time, at the time that full contact bare knuckle tournament took place. So, what I want to do is give you a backdrop, and at the end, we'll show you some photos. Again, if you missed any of them, we'll show you some photos of some of the participants, so they remain in your memory. Fred Hamilton was a director of some very good tournaments. Fred Hamilton's All Dojo Championships, Fred Hamilton's Zodiac Championships in the 1970s. Back then, the best tournaments were given by the great master Peter Urban, by Masoyama, by Aaron Banks, by Moses Powell, and by Fred Hamilton. Fred Hamilton, in a particular tournament, one of his tournaments, I believe it was maybe 1974, he actually got tired of hearing about people talking about disputed calls. Now, even though they didn't fight with pads, even though they fought basically bare knuckle, sometimes tape around the knuckle, maybe ace bandages sometimes, but certainly not the pads you see today, most of the time bare knuckle, there was still some disputed calls. Maybe a punch was called that didn't really connect to the body or didn't come close enough to the face. He got tired of hearing all these disputes, so he decided to promote a full contact bare knuckle tournament. Everything goes except eye gouging. Now, let me tell you what that means. Groin kicks were allowed. They're not allowed in the UFC. Headbutts were allowed. They're not allowed in the UFC. Elbows, downward elbows, okay, vertical elbows to the back of the head, to wherever, were allowed. They're not allowed in the UFC. The only thing that wasn't allowed was essentially eye gouging, and according to eyewitnesses, eye gouging still went on and no one was disqualified. The eventual winners, oh, let me say this so you know how really people saw this tournament. The average tournament where they were calling points, they were bare knuckle but not malicious, not necessarily full contact to the face, although contact to the body, and if there was some light contact to the face. But those are point tournaments. People didn't know. It wasn't deliberate full contact to the face like this full contact bare knuckle everything goes tournament that Fred threw, Mr. Hamilton threw. Now, on the average tournament back then, at least 100, sometimes 100 black belts would actually show up that would, be dispersed between the 4 divisions, the heavyweight, light heavyweight, middleweight, and lightweight. In this particular tournament, the invitations went out. 21 competitors showed up. 21. Let's round it out. That means only about 5 competitors showed up for each weight class. Now, the most famous people were fighting back then. People like Joe Hess, he didn't show up. There were a lot of people, a lot of glamorous guys, right, who did not show up for that particular tournament. They graced magazines. People still think they're great fighters today. They didn't show up for that one, and they got invitations. The eventual winners of that particular tournament, full contact, bare knuckle, everything goes except eye gouging, they even did that, was Earl Thompson. Earl Thompson was a dojo mate of Nasiba T. Hill. He drew with David Wells, who was a student of Fred Hamilton himself. The light heavyweight tournament, or light heavyweight division, was won by one of the greatest Goju Ryu fighters ever, the late Fred Miller. Fred Miller was one of the greatest fighters of contact karate I've ever seen in my life. At the time I saw him, he was actually getting ready to retire. Fought from a cat stance, believe it or not, and was just one of the greatest fighters of full contact bare knuckle karate. He won the light heavyweight division. The middleweight division was won by one of my two main karate teachers, Mr. Errol Bennett. Errol Bennett, not Earl, Errol Bennett. He won the middleweight division. He won the middleweight division. Actually, he had two fights. In his last fight for the middleweight title, it was a dispute. He said that he wanted to do it again. His opponent said, okay, let's do it again. Errol Bennett ki'd, which is, you probably know what ki'a is when you exhale. However, everybody has a different ki'a. Mine is a little stronger, but I don't want to come across like a madman on YouTube. But he ki'd, threw a roundhouse kick to the temple. Eyewitnesses say that the gentleman, the Bando kickboxing stylist that was at the end that caught that roundhouse to the temple, he was out before he hit the ground. His hands went up and he fell straight back, all right, from a Japanese roundhouse. Not a Thai roundhouse, a Japanese ball of the foot roundhouse kick. So Earl Bennett won the middleweight title. The lightweight title was won by Mr. Happy Robot Crump. Happy Robot Crump was a stablemate of Nasiba T. Hill's, also was a member of the same dojo Nasiba T. Hill belonged to, and was taught actually by her uncle. The juniors, no juniors really wanted to fight full contact bare knuckle except two. These particular juniors were also Nasiba T. Hill's dojo mates. Little K.A. was his nickname. Another nickname was the Eighth Wonder of the World. You will see some photos after this video of him. He was 14 at the time. He went on to be known as Kevin Thompson, which was his given name. Well, his given name was Kevin Brown, but he went on to fight under the name Kevin Thompson. Black Belt Magazine, when he got to be an adult, he was such a formidable opponent, just like he was as a peewee and as a junior. He was named by Black Belt Magazine as the greatest sports competitor of all time in karate, over Joe Louis and over Chuck Norris. This man, Kevin Thompson. They called him the total package because he won in kata, won in weapons kata, and won in fighting. All right? But he was a great peewee and a great junior. He showed up to fight full contact, bare knuckle, everything goes. Who does that? Who does that? 14 years old, he showed up to fight full contact, bare knuckle, everything goes at 14. His stablemate, Mr. Robert Wright, nicknamed Mr. Graceful, he also showed up and could get no takers. There was a woman who actually had retired. She actually had retired, had wiped out basically most of her competition. But she also got a call. She got a call and she said that yes, she would fight. She couldn't get anybody to fight her. No female would want to fight her. Nasiba T. Hill. That's right. Master Nasiba T. Hill, my wife and the co-founder of the Uma Fight Camp, actually in 1975 was the only female who was willing to fight full contact, bare knuckle, everything goes, and could get nobody to fight her. This was in 1975. So those people who talk about ranking, this is why she's a 7th degree black belt. This is why she's a master. Because what? 30 years ago, 40 years ago, she was feared as a fighter. And this is the female that whenever we have certificates, whenever we have something that you possibly need our signatures on, you will see Safe Carmen and you will see Nasiba T. Hill. Many times people don't understand, I've said this before, females are given positions because it's politically correct, not the Uma Fight Camp. Nasiba T. Hill almost has no peers. If you can say she has any peers at all, it might be maybe Lucia Riker, the great female boxer who's now retired, maybe Ann Wolf, the great female boxer who was also a trainer, who is now retired as a boxer. But Nasiba T. Hill was asked to fight full contact bare knuckle and could get no takers in this tournament in 1975. So, That was a tournament that took place years, 30 some years, maybe 40 years. I didn't do my math before the UFC. Full contact, bare knuckle, groin punches, groin kicks were allowed, headbutts were allowed, downward elbows were allowed. Every single thing was allowed except eye gouging, and even that took place in Harlem. Only 21 people showed up. I'm proud to say in the end that I'm the only individual who can say he has trained under both Kareem Abdullah, the man who taught the heavyweight champion, the man who taught the lightweight champion, and the man who taught Nasiba T. Hill karate, and Earl Bennett, the middleweight champion. I'm the only one that can say he's trained personally under those two. So when we start talking about our karate legacy, we talk about our karate legacy not to rag on anyone else. We talk about our karate legacy because it is legitimate. That full contact bare knuckle tournament took place in 1975. The winners were Earl Thompson and David Wells were tied for heavyweight champion. Fred Miller won the light heavyweight title. Earl Bennett won the middleweight title. And Happy Robot Crump won the lightweight title. Little K.A. and Mr. Graceful, Robert Wright, could not get any takers. Nasiba T. Hill could not get any takers. That's the history of a 1975 full contact bare knuckle tournament that took place almost 20 years before the first UFC and many years before Dana White and his people actually, or Zuffa, actually purchased what is the UFC today. So, there you go. And now you can look at some of the photos. These are actual pictures of the people who took part in that full contact, bare knuckle, all things go tournament. Uma Fight Camp. Save Carmen. Train hard, train smart. Enjoy the photos. See you next video.